Captain Esso, the enemy forces along the western front have all but collapsed. Excellent news. The rear armor division has also suffered catastrophic losses. Most of the heavy armor is unable to retreat. The good news keeps coming. Captain, what are you reading? Auto purification reports. They are abysmal. With all due respect, Captain, that hardly seems to be our concern. It is very well our concern. The water purification plant on the very same western front has suffered catastrophic damage. The entirety of the western district is without clean water, but the enemy is retreating. Yes, we've won. Also correct. Very good. You are paying some attention. But you seem to have failed to listen to what I have said. The entire western district, harboring 7 million people, is without clean water. I ran through a battle tank today. I tore the head off of a chaos sorcerer. My squad felled a hellbrute, and you were concerned about sewage water, which becomes sewage. This sounds like an administrative problem, Captain. The Administratum abandoned this planet the moment the shooting started, Castor. When they return, do you think they'll remember which district had water purification plants? How many grain silos were destroyed? How many homes to rebuild from the rubble? Who feeds these people? Who clothes them? Who rebuilds their world? The Administratum? The Emperor? If only it were that simple, Castor. Victory does not come when the enemy retreats, nor when you kill them all. You can rid the galaxy of all foes and threats, but do you know when true victory has been achieved? When the lights come back on, when the water flows again, when a parent can send their child back to school, when the farmers plant crops instead of mines. That is when we have won.
It's probably a given that if you are introduced to a new franchise or IP or whatever, that inevitably you will run into who is the face of it just at first glance. For Destiny, it's the basic Guardians, the Titan, the Hunter, and the Warlock, the player characters that you get to make into your own characters. For franchises where you play a already pre-existing character, you see Kratos from the God of War series on the front usually. The other thing about a poster boy is that something about them has to grab your attention. Star Wars A New Hope does this perfectly because despite the absolute masterpiece of a mess that this poster is, your eye is drawn to the main detail, to Luke. I think it's probably the best example of this kind of advertising because Luke isn't particularly interesting when you look at him at first glance, but the lightsaber that he wields, exaggerated and bright, is what makes you realize that he is important, that he is the main character, the poster boy. So what does Warhammer have? They have the Adeptus Astartes, or for those who aren't nerds, the Space Marines. The warriors who know no fear, countless in number and plentiful in variety, they are the thing that gets people's attention when they're getting into the hobby. They're easy to paint, they're easy to play, they're the perfect beginner faction. But with so many flavors of Gene Seed out there, happy Pride, who is the one chapter that gets to stand above all? The one who gets to be the face of the grimdark future where there is only war. The Ultramarines, of course, the bestest, most favorite legion of the Emperor, and everybody wishes that they were them. Okay, that's not true, that's old shitty lore, but despite their name, the Ultramarines excel at one thing above all else, being the focus, and wow, are they the focus of a lot of things in 40k. Love them or hate them, the Ultramarines are here to stay. But who are the Ultramarines? Where did they come from? And why should you feel bad for them? Because Jesus Christ, every single one of their characters has depression. Before we get into that, hello, I am Dottie, the man in the Broken Tower, here once again to give my spiel on a grimdark galaxy very, very close by. Memberships are open, you get your name on the model, and if you are chosen or higher after a year of being a member, you get Kit Bash to be used in my games of 40k or Horus Heresy when I end up to play more of that. 1 year anniversary is coming up soon. I am actively commissioning my brother to make art for a video that I want to do, but in the meantime, let's go ahead and talk about some blueberries. So how does this all start? So after Erda or Chaos decided to throw all the Primarch babies into the warp to avoid paying child support, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, Roboute Guilliman, which is apparently how his name is actually pronounced, had his pod hurtling out towards space and crash landing in Macragge. What kind of horrible, incomprehensibly dog-ass world did Guilliman arrive on? A planet run by slavers, a death world full of toxic gas, or perhaps a world shrouded in eternal night? No, Guilliman just landed on sci-fi Rome. As a matter of fact, Guilliman probably landed on the best planet between all of his brothers. When landing on Macragge, a man by the name of Connor Guilliman foresaw a vision which prompted him to ride out with his guards to the crash site, and they ended up finding a capsule. Upon opening it, they discovered a baby. Now, thankfully, Macragge is a far more advanced, civilized world despite being run off of the Roman two-governor system. They clearly realized that Guilliman came out of some insanely high-tech capsule and wasn't just some god that fell from the stars. Connor adopted Roboute as his own son, and the rest rest was history. Guilliman was also raised by Tarsha Uton, also known as Guilliman, who was Connor Seneschal, rather than his wife, and damn, she was probably the best thing to ever happen to Guilliman. Tarsha can only be described as strong-willed and stubborn. Between being raised by Connor and Tarsha, Guilliman had a very good upbringing, and like every Primarch, he excelled at everything he did, grew rapidly, but it was never allowed to get to his head. Not to mention that like every Primarch, he was very, very good at war. He ended up earning the respect of some of the barbarians outside of the city to the point where they stopped attacking civilized regions. And it wasn't because Guilliman conquered them, slaughtered them all, no, it literally when dueling a chieftain of the Illyrians, I think is what they're called, he opted never to strike and only to defend himself, tiring out the chieftain and eventually offered a sign of peace by returning an ancient Illyrian artifact that his people from Macragge had stolen from them. It became very obvious that at this point Guilliman was in his Aragorn arc and was about to become the one true king. So much so that when he returned home, he found that his father Connor had been the subject of a coup and assassination attempt. Notice I said attempt because I believe Connor was shot in the head and lived. Oh, and for the reason for this coup happening in the first place, Connor was very meritocratic. Connor believed in a lot of socialism, which was becoming increasingly popular with the masses of Macragge. So between him being genuinely a nice leader and his son being Jesus Christ, Gallen, the other governor, sought to kill him. Even while mortally wounded, Connor was still organizing the defenses of Macragge against the coup, literally walking out of surgeries either right after or during them to command his forces. But Connor didn't have long to live, and with his dying breath did he tell Guilliman to lead Macragge and save their people. Guilliman proceeded to lock the fuck in and smash the rebellion to pieces, executed the co-conspirators, and then redistributed their assets and wealth to the people because Guilliman is someone's eat the rich fantasy or something, and I'm noticing a pattern here. Regardless, he continued his father's reforms through rewarding merit did Macragge prosper like never before. And guess who fucking showed up? Oddly enough, Big E was super close to Macragge by the time Guilliman's exploits were being whispered throughout the void, but due to some warp storms, he would arrive to Macragge 5 years later. But when he did arrive, he was so impressed with how Guilliman had a handle on things that he almost just bounced before remembering, right, he came here for Guilliman in the first place. Macragge was run so perfectly and efficiently that Big E had almost no reason to change anything. Guilliman was given his Marines, the Ultramarines, and so the Great Crusade continued on with Guilliman now joining. Guilliman's stint through the Great Crusade should be considered as such. Lots of taxes and then tearing heads off of traitors. Well, I mean, that's the Horus Heresy, but you know, same thing, I guess. Even during the heresy, when he thought that Terra had fallen due to the ruin storm that the word bearers had created, masking the signal of the Astronomicon, Guilliman locked the fuck in again and already began creating a second Imperium in case it needed to happen. That being said, he himself admitted that it was a waste of time and they should have just been going full steam ahead towards the Astronomicon, at least where they last saw it, but trying to sail through the warp without the Astronomicon is kind of a death sentence. That's not the point. The point is that Guilliman should have been prioritizing killing traitors rather than sitting around in the Macragge system with a thumb up his ass. Also, the Ruin Storm was pretty much galaxy spanning. It wasn't really going to give him a lot of room to move around. I also want to give Guilliman a lot of credit in the Heresy for just being a complete fucking monster. He ended up getting his command bridge on his ship blown up, got jettisoned out to space only to show back up and start punching the heads off of traitors with no helmet, by the way, while walking around in the vacuum of space. It's also very funny how his Primarch ability is all but confirmed to just be a master at logistics. Guilliman was born to be an Excel spreadsheet master, but also throwing hands is just something that he's naturally good at. Oh right, he and the Ultramarines are also the reason why the word bearers turned traitor. Well, they're not the exact reason, it's actually Big E's fault, but the Ultramarines and Guilliman still burnt down Monarchia. Credit to the word bearers that at least took them this for them to go full traitor. Actually, it took them a lot of things before they ended up going full traitor, now that I think about it. As per usual, like most people, he was too late to the Siege of Terra and then went on to write the Codex Astartes. And I do want to say, the Codex is a good book. It talks about battlefield tactics, military composition, but it also did the one thing that everybody hates, and it forbade legion building. You have to realize that after the heresy, nobody trusted Space Marines. Legions were anywhere from 20,000 to 100,000 strong, and after the expulsion of the 2nd and 11th Primarch, Guilliman himself had inherited a lot of those Space Marines. Guilliman was being cautious, and it was understandable. No group should have more than 1,000 Marines, so that way the rest of the chapters could keep each other in check and prevent any more civil wars. So about that didn't work. Guilliman himself admitted that the Codex, by virtue of the Legion building rule, was a mistake, but he had a lot of good ideas. He was preparing for his Marine captains to be able to integrate themselves into the Imperium after the Great Crusade had ended, but I also think he just didn't know about the Thunder Warriors and how things went for them. But regardless, Guilliman wanted his Marines to be statesmen, politicians. He wanted them not just to secure peace, but also secure prosperity. Guilliman eventually ends up getting stabbed in the throat by Fulgrim because Fulgrim is a piece of shit, but before Guilliman could die, his Marines interred him into a stasis chamber where they would let him rest until they found a way to save his life. Enter stage left, the 13th Black Crusade, a topic which will get its own video eventually. Cadia falls, the Great Rift is torn open, Belisarius Cawl, Yvraine and company all come to Ultramar, where they begin trying to resurrect Guilliman by killing him. It is actually a very amazing moment in 40k lore, and I want to get into it more, but all you need to know is that Guilliman is interred in the Armor of Fate, a giant suit that keeps him alive, and was the first returning Loyalist Primarch in the year 40,000. One other thing about Guilliman is that he is unironically fucking hilarious. While still forced to wear the armor due to just being resurrected, Guilliman was in his office and had dropped a piece of paper. Due to the thickness of his gauntlet, he was unable to pick it up after repeated attempts, forcing him to stare down at a paper and say before one of his captains, "My greatest enemy." And that's Guilliman. Frankly, he deserves his own episode, like in full. He went back to Terra to speak to the Emperor. He's fought most, if not all, the returning Primarchs and has been the lead on many massive wars in the setting, in 40k specifically, not Horus Heresy, because this is a 40k channel, not a Horus Heresy channel. By virtue, he is the main character, so he has a lot more material to go through, and we still have the actual chapter to talk about. But what makes the Ultramarines special? I'm gonna be real, this is a very boring answer. The reason the Ultramarines are special in Warhammer 40k is because they are competent. They aren't trying to engage in melee all the time. They aren't using insane and unorthodox tactics, minus when they're with Belisarius Cawl. They're just good at their job. When Guilliman was in stasis, it became kind of detrimental, but also old 40k lore was stupid and every chapter had to have a downside for literally no particular reason. But for the Ultramarines, they were so depressed Guilliman was gone that his last vestige of wisdom, the Codex Astartes, turned from a training manual into a Bible. You've probably heard the joke, the Codex Astartes does not support this action. It's not just a meme said by one guy in a video game, it's how a majority of Ultramarines viewed the Codex before Guilliman came back. Guilliman had to pretty much announce to his chapter and successor chapters that the Codex was meant to be interpreted and is not gospel. Whether or not people actually took that message to heart is a different question entirely. Since most chapters of the Ultramarines vary from defending farmlands to wearing skulls on your face. The other fun thing, if you're an Ultramarine or an Ultramarine successor, is that you have a non-0% chance that you have to work with Belisarius Cawl. He deserves his own video, which might be coming sooner than later, but we'll see. But regardless, the feats of Archmagos Belisarius Cawl, the Prime Conduit, can be described as such. He's an amalgamation of possibly 100 different souls. He freed a Catan just because he could, as well as boarding a drop pod with Space Marines on it to intercept the defenses of a Necron Tomb World. In order to ensure that it actually managed to sneak past the defenses, he turned off every single system on a drop pod until the last second. Why? Because he's Belisarius Cawl, and he can do whatever the fuck he wants. It's kind of funny because despite the fact that the entire point of the Ultramarines is that they're just normal, competent Marines, they get dragged around to do some of the most insane bullshit. To quote Gadriel, the Codex Astartes does not support this action, but I'm looking forward to it. Beyond that, the Ultramarines have a ton of characters. A few of them are very one-note. Tigurius is the chief librarian and was able to peer into the hive mind of the Tyranids. Calgar is Robocop if he was a space marine. Caedo Sicarius had to deal with the Tau and now he wants to jump off a bridge. Euro Ventress got unbirthed by the Daemonculaba, which I will also talk about eventually, but in all honesty, I feel like all these characters pale in comparison to the absolute mad lads that you get to play in 40k video games. People go on about how all the Ultramarine characters have ultra depression, so why don't we go ahead and talk about the people who don't have depression, they have nostalgia. Demetrian Titus and Malum fucking Caedo. Titus has the longest amount of lore, seeing as how he's the main character of 2 video games that you can play right now, but I love him and Caedo for 2 completely different reasons. Discovered on an Agri world almost a century before the Tyranids would invade Macragge, Titus was selected to become an aspirant, a Space Marine squire more or less. Secret Level gives us a little bit of a peek into his childhood, but also Secret Level is just a goated fucking series anyways, and if you're gonna watch anything on Amazon Prime, go watch that. But before he was even made into a Space Marine, Titus was described as being incapable of feeling fear, which was also increased by the fact that Titus had an almost uncontrollable rage. Eventually, thanks to the mentorship of Sergeant Mataris, Titus went on to beat ass. Even when he was a kid, Titus stood 10 toes on business and was killing with a Space Marine combat knife that he, heavy quotations, acquired. Eventually, he would fight in the First Tyrannic War, pursuing Tyrannus and chasing them outside of the Ultramar system, had run-ins with Craftword Bealton, which, if you don't know who Bealton are, imagine the most racist, xenophobic, ultra-nationalist group you can think of, now make them elves and give them black hole technology. Eventually, he became captain of the Second Company, which is weird because I think Caedo Sicarius was captain of the Second Company at the time, but I also could be getting my timelines wrong, or some. I think someone just fucked up, actually. The events of the first Space Marine game would commence with the defense of Graia against the Orc Wa, led by War Boss Grimskull, possibly the orkiest orc to have ever orked his Orc Wa across the galaxy. But throughout the entirety of the game, not only is Titus performing Mortal Kombat fatalities against his foes, but he's also literally built different. As alluded to in both the Space Marine games and Secret Level, Titus may or may not just be cyclically resistant. Coming into contact with a straight up chaos artifact and being caught in the middle of a demonic ascension ritual, Titus is just normal. He's fine. Nothing happened to him. Well, he's normal for a Space Marine with very bad anger issues. It's to the point where Chaos itself is constantly trying to get him killed. He was taken by the Inquisition after the Graia debacle, where it was learned that the Inquisitor that had taken him under his charge was possessed by a demon and had to get put down by the Grey Knights. He goes on to work with the Death Watch as a Black Shield for I think like 100 years or something. Then, in the events of Space Marine 2, an Astropath, either corrupted or possessed by a Chaos Sorcerer, tried to get him killed, and he literally entered a fucking warp rift and fought Thousand Suns on their own home turf, absolutely bitch-slapping Imra, or whatever his name was, before Titus went on to receive the greatest honor a Marine can get, the Laurels of Victory, formally being welcomed back into his chapter. Whereas Titus is built different because he is physically resistant and probably the most formidable of all the Ultramarines, mentally speaking, Malum Caedo is built different because we are past main character energy. Malum Caedo is a fucking cheat code. Let's go ahead and start off with this. Malum Caedo's name literally translates to I kill evil. Malum Caedo's game, Bolt Gun, is an old Doom boomer shooter type game that features him slaughtering cultists, Chaos Space Marines, greater demons, and single-handedly stopping a Chaos invasion on Graia, the same world that Titus was on. If I cannot sell you on the game by that alone, he has a taunt button in a single-player game. He makes references to Space Marine 1 while talking shit to his enemies. I think he canonically carries like 9 or 10 weapons around with him at all times. The cover of the game is meant to emulate the old Doom cover, and what it ends up doing is actually just telling you how the game is played. You're not locked in here with Chaos. Chaos is locked in here with you. Those enemies are not surrounding him. They're rushing him down out of desperation because they know if they don't kill him now, it's over for them. And you know what's even more funny about Bolt Gun? There's a second one that's being made, and I'm pretty sure the second game picks up right after the events of the first game, so after all the fighting Caedo did, he just gets straight back into this shit. Sure, I could go on and talk about all the characters that the Ultramarines have that are depressed, because according to some people, if somebody is sad, it means the character is deeper, but honestly, to hell with that. I don't want my characters to be deep and sad. I don't need them being complex or compelling. I want these Marines to do what they were made to do, and in some cases, that requires them to gut punch a greater demon. Why sit around and talk about the people who are sitting around and feeling sad when we could celebrate the Marines who lock in and fight for mankind as they were made to do? I like Guilliman. I like how interesting he is, but in spite of the sad boy hours, the Guilliman that I like was the one who was punching word bearers into red mist, the Guilliman who held his own against Angron, the Guilliman who at the first breath he drew after being resurrected, drew the Emperor's sword and cut the first guy who charged him in half. Some people, like Uriel Ventress, learned this lesson the hard way. Being an Ultramarine doesn't mean being the best. It means being there to begin with. So quote, "Each man is a spark in the darkness. Would that we all burn as bright." Thanks for listening. Lazy video for a lazy bum like myself. My brother is going to be working on art for the Broken Tower video, which I will going to probably start working on now because it's going to take me a little bit. I've had the script done in various forms, but I'm also just like rewriting it for like the third time. I got a bunch of other scripts that are like halfway done, which feature way less editing, so we'll also see if I can get any of those done. But regardless, I'm nearing a year of YouTube, and I really want to get this video done. I think it'll turn out great. That being said, thank you to these channel members. Without you, I'd still be using YouTube, but having you around is still a great comfort. That being Crimson, Lone, CBJor95, The Hog, Toaster, and Felicia, Mount Papa 11, Josh from Allstate, Balding Dragon 62, Regular Alley, Suspendor, Javier Soto, Matt the Jam Man, Overdrive Perfection, NV, The Coffee Addict, Zachary Y, The God Emperor of R, Alexander McCabe, Ritz, Arctic Berserker, Omidium, and Captain Bubbles. And an even bigger thank you to these fine psychopaths. The members' models will be upon us soon, and I am both excited and terrified for what's to come. That being Divine Backhand, what a fucking name. Holy shit. Nabis Omicron, the Great Sword Cowboy. Jokimitsu 45, Celtic. Human Spirit Indomitus. John Papa John. Isigo 11, Crazy Axeman. Commander Apo CC 1119. Solace in the Void. Slap my fat nuts, man. Nameless Ghoul Ease. Never Lost, man. Gap G. Dism. Felix. Up, down, left, right. Istra. And Ape Brain Esquire. God damn, that's fucking funny. After Space Marines is Chaos, and I mean, we're just going to go ahead and see where I'm with videos in these next coming weeks, because looking at the calendar, I have 1, 2, 3 weeks until I fly out on my trip, and then I'm gone for a week. I will try to have stuff ready by then. We will see. I think I could get like one more video out before I go on my vacation. Oh, God, I have 30 minutes of audio to close through. See you soon.